So here we are and the system is broke. American dream has gone up in smoke. So stop sitting there all broken hearted. Let's get this motherfucking party started. Lady Liberty is ringing a bell, and we're driving us straight into hell. But don't worry, we got what you need. Crank up the volume till your eardrums bleed. Gonna make America again.
Yeah, I would smoke cigars in my car, and I don't know what it is. Maybe my sense of smell is awful since COVID. I did lose part of my sense of smell. It's not as good as it used to be. And I definitely don't do like drugs to blame on that, you know?
Right.
But I stopped smoking in my car for a while. And then I started back up again because sometimes the mood just hits you. Like you just want to light one up.
Just want a cigar sometimes, yeah.
Oh my God, dude. So the goal here is I've got a bunch of inventory in the room next door. That's my office. That's where I do orders out of. I'm trying to sell out of most of the stuff in there because I want to focus more on advocacy and, you know, like resource building for a better way to a. And I want to turn that into the podcast room also. But when doing so, I want to get plastic. Like I want to get a plastic fucking barrier for the room and then decorate over it, like put a wall up or whatever, so I can smoke in there and have an exhaust fan behind me, and that way it won't smoke out my house. Yeah. Especially
having a kid at home, like I can understand that.
Yeah.
See, I got no kids. I mean, my employees are used to me just chiefing stogies in the office all day, so like,
hell yeah.
I'm not offending anyone. And then whatever. Before we open, I'll normally hit the store with some Ozium so it doesn't smell like a cigar bar.
Yeah, I hear you. But you know what? Like, and I'm biased, but if I walked into a gun store and it smelled like cigars, the smell of cigars is different than the smell of cigarettes. You know that. And
yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it's just like a Pavlovian thing with me, but I grew up with my dad smoking cigars. And I always associated, it's like father like son. We're just a bunch of degenerates. I grew up always thinking, like, having good experiences with the smell of cigar in the air.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it was for me, too, is like, I associate the smell of cigars with, like, my dad driving me home from a baseball game. And being like, oh, I'm proud of you. Or, like, when I was a kid, sometimes he would take me into the cigar bar because he knows a lot of the guys that run the local ones around here. So I would like sit there doing my homework after school sometimes while he's chiefing on a cigar. Or at the fire department was another big one. I'd spent a lot of time at the fire department as a kid, and like all those guys were just chiefing massive stogies.
I've never heard somebody use the word chiefin more times in such a short period of time, and I fucking love it. I need to use that word more often. Was your dad a firefighter?
Still is, technically. It's just that he's up there in years. He's like 74, 75, maybe older. I forget. I'm a bad son. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's well into his 70s at this point. So he still shows up, goes to all the meetings. He's actually the treasurer of our fire department, but he doesn't really run calls anymore.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a cool gig.
Yeah, and then I stepped away from the fire department once I got the store because I just don't have time for that anymore.
Yeah, and you got a massive beard and just looking like a boss, dude.
Well, I appreciate it. While I was still there, I had like very short hair, didn't have the beard. I had a killer stash, not unlike yourself. But
well, this is the only thing I can have, so I figure I might as well rock it.
But then when I became an EMT, the grooming regulations were a lot more relaxed. So all I had to do was tie my hair back. The beard couldn't go past, I think it was like 2 or 3 centimeters. So a lot more relaxed. And then, I eventually just kept the long hair and the beard, never got rid of it.
Yeah, and now you sell guns.
It's been quite a journey. I've had quite a few different career paths in my life. So, first ever job, I worked at a gas station. And that was a great job for a high schooler, especially being like, all your friends could come in. Their ass wasn't 18.
Dude, I can see that.
Oh, yeah, dude, I know him.
I can see that, but, and like, don't take offense to this, but I can see you now, like, the This dude behind the counter of a gas station, just with the coolest fucking stories, like clerk style, not like I've made mistakes in my life style. Like,
so that's kind of how it was, You just sit there, chop it up with people. You meet people from all walks of life that have their own very interesting stories. Impart some worldly wisdom on you.
Yeah,
and then you're able to sell tobacco to all your buddies who are underage, which makes you the most popular kid in high school.
Not that you ever did that, but you could.
No, not that I would ever do that, but one could.
One could do that, mayhaps.
And then after that, I worked at a butcher's shop, which was just a horrible experience. And one of the reasons I was a vegetarian for a while, because I had just seen too much fucking meat, and I was like, I'm never eating this shit again.
Wow. Man, I love meat, dude. Are you a vegetarian now, or were you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just for a while after I had worked at the butcher shop, seeing like what goes into this and what it's like before it's processed, like that grossed me out. I didn't have the stuff.
Dude, I get it. I feel that, man. Yeah. Before we get into how you got into where you are now, I want to introduce you because I love these soft openings. They're kind of like a little bit more casual. It's perfect for people like yourself. Like, we've been friends for a while. We've been talking on the interwebs and whatnot. I know what your face looks like before you show up on my camera, kind of thing. So it's we want to stay somewhat professional when we've got people coming on here who we do not have a rapport with yet. But someone like yourself, however, we can be as unprofessional as possible. I mean, honestly, we can do whatever we want. It's our fucking podcast.
Exactly.
That's the great thing about it.
I am not a professional person. I may run a business. I may, try to help out the community when I can, sponsor a lot of stuff, but I'm still the same old kid I was 10 years ago. I don't let my position now, because a lot of people, once they start, I don't like to use the term being successful because that implies I think more of myself than I do. But I feel like once a lot of people have success, it kind of changes them. They become too good for their old friends. They become, uber formal. And that's just not me. I'm the same kid I was 10 years ago. It's just that now I have a business and employees I have to take care of.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I have a business, and the only person I have to worry about is myself, which is good and which is bad, because I do think if I had other people to worry about, I'd have more accountability. But it is a load off my plate when there's a little too much month at the end of the money, and you're like, it's a good thing I don't have to pay people. I don't even have to pay myself half the time. Well, I don't more than half the time. But anyway, that's another story. Oh, Andrew's here.
What's going on, buddy?
Andrew, say hi. Stop being so rude.
There we go. I can hear you now.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, what's happening?
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the A Better Way to a podcast. We are your hosts, Andrew and Jordan. I'm Jordan. I'm your host, named Jordan. And Andrew's the other one. It usually goes a different way. And today we have our friend Dustin Fagnani from Fagnani Firearms. Where are you located? I don't actually know that.
So we are located in Throop, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Scranton.
We got to make the...
Before you say it, don't say anything about The Office. I fucking hate The Office.
No, I love The Office,
no, it's
man.
Good.
I'm gonna make the theme song to this episode The Office.
No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, that might be a copyright issue, actually.
The thing... A lot of people in this area don't like The Office because you're making a show about our, little shitty small town, and you're going to film it at some backlot in California instead of filming it in our shitty little small town and, influxing some money into the economy.
Yeah, that's a reason to hate it, or not to dislike it, or at least to have a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah, at least Borat went to Kazakhstan. When they made Borat, what's his name?
They actually
he went to Kazakhstan to film,
But he treated them like shit.
Oh yeah, he's like banned for life. But he brought some money.
Yeah, can you imagine if the producers of The Office came to Throop, but they treated everybody like Borat treated the people from Kazakhstan?
Find like the dirtiest fucking rundown, abandoned like squat house, and be like, this is a high end building for Scranton.
Exactly. The thing is, I could see that very easily too, because being that we were a big electrical city, and now a lot of that has left the area. There's a lot of places that are, not the best. There's a lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of
many such cases.
Some of them, some of them has started to be gentrified, Like, they turned the old lace factory into apartments, which for the long time, that was just a big eyesore, you know, an abandoned factory, very dangerous. Kids used to go there to throw parties. People got hurt. So it's nice to see the area start to make a little bit of a comeback with these influxes of, you know, foreign investors. But at the same time, people feel some type of way about that, too. Because, you know, here are these people from New York or Connecticut buying up all the properties and raising the price of, you know, the little housing that we have here.
Yeah, and pushing the pores out.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, you know, there's, you know, this is probably a conversation for another time, but I would love to figure out a way that you can improve a community without driving the people who have lived there for generations out. You know,
exactly.
That's obviously.
Well, they've tried it with stuff like rent controls, but that has its own negative effects on the other end. You know,
right?
I think, you know, the reality is, if everything's working perfectly in like a free market utopia, then it's like, when your property value goes up and you can't afford taxes anymore, you should be able to sell your property and, you know, pay your income tax on the whatever your gain was, and then use that to go find a place that is within your means.
Right.
But it falls apart very often because it's like,
well, because most of the people who live in these areas don't own their property, and the rent goes up, and they have nothing to show for it.
Even if they do, even if they can move somewhere else that they can afford at their current salary, that doesn't mean that the place that they can afford has a job that can pay them that same salary. You know, or whatever, you know, I mean, there's so many different reasons that it just fucking, you know, this like, you know, squeaky clean little ideal just kind of falls flat. And you know, and furthermore, I mean, it's just like a lot of these people just don't want to leave. You know, furthermore, they just don't want to leave, you know, they like where they live. And, you know, it's, you know, even if you're like a free market super capitalist, you have to have empathy for people that like lived in a place for 80 years.
I was about to say,
you clearly don't have to have any empathy. To live.
Oh, that's right. Empathy is the great weakness of Western civilization. No, I mean, you have to empathize with somebody who just is at the end of their life and doesn't want to like uproot it.
Exactly. You know, like my family's been in this area for like 100 some years at this point. Like, granted, I've lived other places in my adult life, but I always find myself coming back here because this is where my roots are. This is where all my family is. You know, I don't want to call the area rundown or shitty because that's kind of just disrespectful.
It's well loved.
It's well loved, but it's a former.
It's lived in.
It's a former industrial area that's been suffering from, you know, the deindustrialization of it, which a lot of places.
I live near Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Bridgeport had a cameo on Family Guy where Peter said something about this shitty rundown, shitty something, Bridgeport, Connecticut. He's like, oh, here comes the hate mail from the residents, and it was like this guy, and he's like, dear writers of Family Guy, I'll have you know, Bridgeport, Connecticut was the hub of industry for the 40s, and like it was just raging, and it sucks. There are a bunch of towns in Connecticut, as there are in every state, that are like that. Waterbury, you know, Torrington, Bridgeport, all these, Hartford, all these used to be manufacturing cities, and the manufacturing went overseas. So do the jobs, so do the money.
Just like Scranton, just like Bethlehem. I mean, a lot of deindustrialization, you know, hurts a lot of areas, not just specific to our neck of the woods.
Yeah, but don't worry, Trump's going to fix that.
No more of this American carnage.
Oh man, he's going to fix that. Yeah, he's going to fix that by getting rid of public broadcasting services.
He said he wanted to level the playing
cutting
field.
Free lunch for kids.
We didn't know that he meant he's just going to make everybody poorer and miserable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't expect Trump to be such a communist and want to dismantle capitalism. Brick by brick.
You know, really.
Here we are.
Yeah. If we can't afford to buy anything, are we really capitalists?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, dude, so you run Fagnani Firearms, and
yes,
as somebody who's in this space, this is like, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because I don't know many gun store owners, like actual brick and mortar gun store owners, a few, but knowing I know your politics, but not everybody else does. I think it's a breath of fresh air to have people that aren't shitty, like right-wing goofballs.
Yeah.
Who are prominent members of the firearms community. And I would say by owning your own firearms store, you are a prominent member of the firearms community.
Well, I'm flattered you think I'm, prominent. I appreciate that. But ever since we set out, like even like a few years ago when I was working for a different gun store, one of the local ones, I won't shit talk my former place of employment, but that was basically what you described, very right wing, very, if you came in there as a person of a different ethnic persuasion or a different religion, basically if you weren't a straight white cop or veteran, you got treated differently than, anybody else. And that's what we set out to do differently, is we don't care what color you are, who you sleep with, who you pray to. If you choose to pray to anyone, everybody gets treated with the same respect and dignity at Fagnani Firearms. And that kind of puts us on edge with, most of the other gun stores around here that are not so accepting. And that's definitely garnered us a very different clientele than those other places. I'm very happy to say we have a large Hispanic community that comes in to buy firearms from us because we have employees that speak Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
We have a very large...
It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, we have a very large gay community that comes in to shop because, they know they're not going to be treated differently here. They feel safe coming to buy guns from us and not being judged or potentially even, harmed.
Yeah.
We have a large, Christians, Muslims, Jews, people that are Asian, people that are agnostic, atheists. I mean, we really have everybody. The problem with that is then you also get your typical, Trump hat, redneck, So when we say we treat everybody equally, we mean it everybody. And, even the people you don't necessarily agree with. I'm not going to kick somebody out for wearing a Trump hat. For as much as, part of me might like to, they're included when it comes to everybody. And we treat them with the same respect and dignity as anyone.
Well, that's honestly the right way to do it, because having basic decency and humanity should not be extra credit. That should be the standard.
Right.
And if you're practicing that, then everyone is going to come there, unless the people don't like that kind of inclusivity, in which case they won't go.
We have certainly lost some business because we're so inclusive. I mean, we had one guy I threw out of the store actually because he was yelling at Jesus, who was our Spanish-speaking employee. And Jesus has a bit of an accent. I mean, not a lot, but he just got so upset with him, like, "Oh, I can't understand you speak English." And it's one of the few times that ever throwing somebody out of the store. It's like, no, you're not going to yell at my fucking employees like that. Like, get out.
No, that's valid. I definitely I support that. I'd probably have done the same thing.
But there's certainly some people that won't shop here because we have that reputation as the all-inclusive gun store. And that's fine. We don't want to deal with those people that, wouldn't shop from us anyway, specifically because we're, a very queer-friendly, all-inclusive space. If that bothers you to the point where you don't want to shop here, good. We don't want your business, That's
so goofy to think about. I don't know. I guess this is my inclusive privilege talking, but I can't see going into a place. This is not tooting my own horn or anything like that, but we went to the Science Center, the Connecticut Science Center yesterday, and and something that I've noticed that is kind of a bit of a turnoff. We were talking about the rubber band effect a couple episodes ago, and what I dislike is performative inclusivity.
Yes,
I don't like having signs all over the place. I don't granted, in certain places you need that because otherwise blending into the unfriendly places around it is just like being unfriendly. But there were little things that I picked up on, like when I went to the bathroom, it just said restroom. It didn't say men's and women's, but it also didn't say gender neutral. Like a bathroom is gender neutral.
Yeah, like just call it a bathroom. They're not like making a show of it. It's just like
There
were a couple employees that had pride pins, which I thought was cool because it was like their own choice to do that, obviously, and the place let them do that. I thought that was neat. There was, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm making a really harsh assumption, but it seemed as though they employed people who possibly could not have gotten a job in like a customer facing job elsewhere due to possibly being a bit on the spectrum or like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
no, it's okay.
I don't want to say that they're not good at their job because they are. They're great at it. But
no, there's a burger place near me, Biggs, that all of the every time I go there, it's very apparent that the people bussing tables are like they've got some kind of like cognitive impairment or like learning disability or like something like that, and it's like I think it's okay to say that you're happy to see that people that might otherwise have a hard time getting employment do have opportunities.
Having gainful employment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They care about that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, and I'm not talking like Goodwill type employment where they're paying you under minimum wage because they're
right.
That's
like
fucked up,
Andrew. Before you got on, Jordan and I were talking about the former jobs I had before I had the gun store, and I told him I used to work at a butcher shop, grocery store, and a lot of the baggers there were people that were very visibly on the spectrum, had Down syndromes, what have you, and they were well loved members of the community. It's nice to see people that are. I don't like to use the term unemployable because that, has a negative connotation, but people who really would have trouble finding gainful employment elsewhere have a spot where they can go and work and, be loved by the community and, feel like part of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like perception, like perceivably unemployable.
Right.
People are ignorant and do not know that most people with Down syndrome can do a job.
Exactly.
It's not, obviously there's different levels and it's a spectrum. With autism, but like there are, I'm sure, plenty of places that just say a flat out no because they're not interested in trying to figure out new ones.
They kind of like see the visible signs or they see it on like paper somewhere and they just they're like no, not in my store. I don't hire those kinds of people. But the reality is that, just because you have like a learning disability or like a social, whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't like perform tasks and like function as a human being. There's
how far I got.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's just like, people say unemployable, but clearly they are employable because they are employed. It's
they just don't get the chance on it.
There are plenty of supposedly like fully functional mental acuity adults that are unemployable.
That's what I was going to say too, is that there's I've got relatives that have no learning disabilities that are just because of who they are and the choices they've made, tough luck forever. It's
right. It makes it very hard to as somebody who's been convicted of a felony, it makes it very hard to find employment.
Right.
Yeah. And one of my I have two prior jobs that I worked with a lot of felons at. Is one of them was working for a company called Campus Specialties, and what we did was go to a lot of the colleges in the area, and we would deliver like the micro fridges and the microwaves. Yeah. And a lot of the guys on my squad were like they had drug charges, simple assault, stuff like that. And they were all great people. It's very hard for them to find gainful employment because of the box. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Same thing with the nightclub I worked at in college. I was a doorman for a very, very shitty club in Williamsport. I won't say the name, but anybody that's familiar with the area probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. But I would say I was probably one of like 3 people there that did not have a felony. Wow. But they were all great people, It's very hard for people that have a felony to find gainful employment.
Yeah. It does suck because you figure after we've talked about this before in regards to gun rights, but you would think that if you were convicted of a felony and did your time, that you should be able to start scot-free, because if you're able to be released into the public, you should be a fully functioning member of society. And if you're not, then you should be kept in prison. And like if you're not fully functioning, but if you're going to be a risk again, ideally not an American prison that is punitive and for profit,
not focused on recovery.
Right.
Exactly. But that's like the logic behind that is that okay, like we've determined that you've served your time for your punishment, you're all better now.
You still can't get society.
A job. Yeah, exactly. It's goofy, and you should be allowed to have your guns.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If that's the thing though, like if you've got a violent felony on your record, then the people in charge of putting you away, basically. But the people in charge of putting you away should be able to figure out how to rehabilitate you so that you don't commit the violent felony again. Not like
exactly.
Okay, you did something. I mean, granted, there are murderers who are probably good people now. I don't know. I'm speaking generally, but hey, look at Casey Anthony. She turned it around, right?
No, shut the fuck up.
Look at John Hinckley Jr. John Hinckley Jr. runs a successful YouTube channel now and does covers of songs.
No way.
It seems like he's really turned his life around. Yeah.
Who's that guy?
He's the one that tried to assassinate Reagan to impress Jodie Foster.
And he did impress Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Did he really?
Yeah. He didn't successfully assassinate Reagan, but she was impressed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Like, she was like, "Oh, good job."
No, she like, I don't know when she admitted it, but she was
flattered.
Yeah, she was like, like honestly kind of cool.
Wow, that's nuts.
There's another one. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, unfortunately. But there was an Australian man who, as a teenager, tried to assassinate a politician. And they started a long correspondence while he was in prison. I'm sure somebody listening probably knows his name off the top of their head. I, for the life of me, can't remember. But he became like a very successful author. He sells like very highly technical books about like human psychology and stuff like that.
Wow.
And he turned his life around. And he said like when he went to assassinate that labor politician, it was during the Vietnam War. And he said, I knew that I had to do something, otherwise I'd just be a nobody for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the case for a lot of people, is they're not inherently bad people. They're just, downtrodden, disenfranchised, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And that's what leads them to commit crimes. Exactly. Hopeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy how that works. People, it's almost like you remove all opportunity or chance of success from an area, and the crime goes up.
Yeah,
exactly.
Nuts.
I've said for a long time, even before I was like an adult and fully conscious of, politics, geopolitics, stuff like that. Even just as a little kid, I could see that, hey, I feel like if people had their basic needs met, like, food, shelter, clothing, I feel like crime would drop significantly. And, it wasn't until I got older and realized, like, oh, that's a whole, political school of thought. Not a very popular one in this country, unfortunately, but...
Yeah. It's one of those things that I think it's probably popular because enough people like it. Like, if it were a TV show, it would be popular. But you can't get the people that are actually in charge of making those things happen to think it's popular.
So here's the thing for me.
Right.
Like these are uncontroversial ideas. Like, people should be taken care of, and if they are taken care of, they will not be desperate and turn to crime. Like, those are not political ideas.
They are controversial in the sense that there are people who don't think certain people should be taken care of.
I don't know, maybe, but those ideas
amongst friends, with us children.
I'm just saying those things in and of themselves are not political statements. Those are like, high level, cultural, sociological kind of like goals, right? But where it gets political is when it's like, okay, so how do you make sure that people's needs are met? And you have like, even among like communists, there's such a wide range of like approaches to this.
Oh yeah.
You're saying communists don't agree on everything?
In my experience, from the outside looking in, and I think that you have this on the other side of it. You've got like entrenched market capitalists that just like have lied to everybody about like what it is that like the political left really wants and the goals and their methods. And obviously we've seen some pretty egregious examples of communist states, but I feel like sometimes it's like the horrors that they've wrought on other countries and on their own populace have been not exaggerated, but like focused on in a way that like the horrors that colonial America has wrought on the native population of this continent maybe is a little bit washed over. And so you kind of start to, with this like full perspective, even as somebody who's not a communist, it's like, okay, there's a little bit more to this than like, commies want to eat all the rich people and steal their money and
because I would not consider myself a communist either. It's like once you espouse these ideals that, again, should not be controversial by any means. Hey, people deserve to have their basic human rights met. Well, now all of a sudden, oh, you're a commie, you're un-American, this and that. It's like, I don't think that makes me a communist, but if that makes me a communist, so be it. I don't think people should, suffer simply for existing.
But that's the thing. It doesn't make you a communist. It just makes you a relatively normal, level-headed person. And, what cracks me up is like, Yeah, I was laughing earlier because Alana Page, aka Bonnie Rotten, called me a communist on the interwebs earlier for saying that you can't be a liberal and a communist at the same time. Because
Right.
she called something liberal communist propaganda, and I said, I'm not even a communist, but I know that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I just think that if you're gonna talk about things, you should at least get the labels right.
Words matter and
But
all that.
words do matter. Well, I don't know. In the sense that like the standards, I just wish people would hold themselves to the standards they hold other people to. We could never hold, the United States could never hold ourselves to the standard that we hold other countries to. Or I'm sorry, we could never hold ourselves in Israel to the standards that we hold other countries to.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, it's worth talking about, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Send another 50 billion anyway.
Exactly. I've seen enough. Triple the defense budget.
Yeah. Exactly. Dude, so how long have you been running the store now?
So I've been in the firearms industry itself for about 7 or so years now. I've owned my own store, for about 3.
Gotcha. I remember when you told me that was happening 3 years ago.
Yeah, you were one of the first people I told. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
how do you see it going with the culture war that is going on right now? Obviously, I'm happy you guys are super inclusive and have a following, but do you see that this might become... Do you think there's going to be like unintentionally segregated gun stores where the queer folks and the marginalized communities will only go to the ones like yours, and as a result end up driving the market to create more of them, which would be great. I would love that. For like an unintentional consequence of being inclusive is that more stores want it to be inclusive. How do you see that
that's
going?
a very good point. Yeah. So I haven't noticed it in our area because, like I said, the lion's share of the stores are your traditional, old boys clubs, Confederate flag on the wall, the whole 9 yards. Whereas I think we have the area's majority of, marginalized gun owners. I don't think a lot of those gun owners go to other stores, like the one I used to work at. If you walked in there as a young black man with dreadlocks, they made assumptions about you. If you walked in there as a woman, they made assumptions about you. If you walked in there as a Muslim or a Sikh, they made assumptions about you. And, people don't want to go places where they feel like they're not valued as customers. So I think, like, the way you put it was fantastic. I think it does kind of unintentionally segregate those stores, because now a lot of those people aren't going to bother going to, this store, that store that isn't inclusive and treats them like dirt simply because they're different. The thing is, we still do get our fair share of, right-wingers, Republicans, Trumpists, the whole 9 yards, just because of the amount of inventory we have. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but during our most recent ATF inspection, one of the agents inspecting us said we had the largest selection of guns they'd seen in the area, the largest selection of ammunition they've seen in their career. So even if you hate me and disagree with my politics, sometimes you have no choice but to shop here because we're the only one that has, 30-40 Krag ammo, 257 Roberts.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I feel like, kind of have to swallow their pride and come buy it off me, secretly shaking their fist because they hate me because I'm a dirty commie queer or whatever the case may be for them. Like I said, we've had people, walk out, former customers of the store. The old gentleman who owned it before I did, he had a very traditional, Republican, Trumpist following, and a lot of those guys don't come here anymore simply to spite me and my employees. And hey, really, at the end of the day, all you're doing is cutting your nose off to spite your face, because you're not going to find, what we have here pretty much anywhere else in the area. Not to shit talk my competitors, because I am friends with a lot of other local gun store owners. A lot of them I used to work with at the store. So we worked at a store in Scranton that, again, I will not name and will not slander. But a lot of us left at the same time to kind of start our own store. And I think that took a significant amount of business away from that store. And I'm friends with a lot of the people that started their own store. We'll bounce customers off one another if I know they have something that I don't have. Like, for instance, we don't carry muzzle loading stuff or black powder. But I know one of the guys I used to work with does. So we send a lot of customers his way. He sends a lot of customers our way because he knows we have, a lot that he doesn't have. And it's a very friendly, working relationship. But then you have these other stores that have been in business for 50, 60 years, and we're the new kids on the block, so they just dislike us inherently.
Well, and they want to have the same kinds of customers they've always had, and they don't want to like adjust to the new demographics of gun culture.
Exactly. Because if I had to put it in percentages, I would say probably only about 30 or 40% of our customers are your typical, straight white male, stereotypical gun owner. The rest of them are people from marginalized communities, whether they be, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ plus, a lot of our customers are what you would consider a marginalized community and wouldn't be catered to in other gun stores.
We've got to put you on our resources page on the website.
Yes,
because
absolutely, I would be honored.
Man, we'd be happy to.
Yeah, it's only $50 a month, and no, I'm just.
Hey, the thing is, though, even giving you guys $50 a month for that, I would have no problem with that because I know you guys are putting that into mutual aid and making the community more inclusive.
It's supposed to. Well, then buy $50 worth of stuff a month if you really want to. But no, the list is free.
I bought $100 worth of stickers from you yesterday.
I know.
A fair amount of my paycheck.
Yeah. No, the list is free because we want it to be free. We don't want that to be a barrier of entry for people to get their name out there and have people find them.
Yeah, we don't want people on either side of it to have like restricted access. We want it to be publicly available, and we want anybody who wants the help to be able to get on there.
I recently had somebody ask me if I gave a law enforcement discount, and I figured in the most polite way possible, the reply would be, we don't give any discounts for occupation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a pretty diplomatic
way to go about it.
Yeah, we don't give any occupational discounts.
That's a lot more diplomatic than I would have been.
I know.
You're probably like, okay, what would Andrew say? What's the opposite of that?
What's the opposite of that? Okay, fuck you, pig. ACAB means Paw Patrol too.
We're like, funny you should ask. We actually have a cop tax. Yeah. We charge cops an extra 20%, and then we donate that to bail funds.
Yeah. Oh, don't think you're escaping. I've already charged your account.
Yeah.
Based on facial recognition from your cell phone.
I used a Stingray.
We have joked about that at the store before, is adding a tax for certain occupations, or the other thing is if somebody's a Steelers fan or a Yankees fan, they get taxed too.
Nice.
But one of the things of doing business in an area like this is you do have to cater to law enforcement, specifically in this industry, in this area. Because a decent amount of our business comes from police departments. And regardless of your feelings on that, you kind of just have to play ball if you want to succeed. A lot of the individual cops I deal with are, just inherently nice people, occupation aside. Just because I don't agree with the system that you uphold doesn't mean I'm going to treat you differently as a person until I see a reason to, because you treat other people differently. Yeah. And like I said, we do a lot of law enforcement contracts. We have a large, the National Guard Armory in our area is right down the street from us. So we get a lot of guardsmen in on the weekends. And like I said, the vast majority of them are fantastic people that don't care, about our politics.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you guys have a range also, or just the store?
Not at the moment. We're working on that. Yeah. And it's been a bit of a headache just with zoning and finding a decent sized property, and also all the overhead that would create. Because as it sits right now, we have 2 full-time employees and about 5 part-timers. And adding a range to that, that's a whole other, I need range safety officers. Now I need people to run the range. And now I have to split my attention between 2 different areas.
I know that some places kind of not work around it, but they kind of like limit access from the public. And they'll do, like, I know that, one gun shop in Arizona, it was like, you couldn't just like walk in and like shoot at the range. It was like, you had to be like a customer, you had to like, or like there was like a club you had to like, it was like a membership or something. So it wasn't like public. I don't know. And it was like, small, it wasn't like a big, like high traffic shooting range, but it seems like for the liability that you incur to even do that, you wouldn't be able to like offset that with with almost with almost anything but like trying to like make a business out of being a shooting range.
For it to be profitable for us, we'd kind of just have to be open to the general
Yeah.
public. Because that was one of my initial thoughts too, was make it like a membership only club. But there's already so many membership only clubs to shoot at in this area.
Yeah.
We would just be another one in the pack, you know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't
Yeah.
do anything for the people that want to get out there and train, but don't really have the opportunity to.
Right.
Because I will say our state ranges, our state funded ranges, at least in this area, kind of suck.
Yeah.
It's a very typical FUD range, you know, only 5 rounds in the magazine, you know, 1 shot every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And that doesn't do anybody any favors when it comes to actual practical shooting experience.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to touch on again was that, you know, you're in this difficult position where with your specific beliefs, but working in the firearms industry, you're kind of forced to sit in the mold and do the things that the other stores are doing. Because the thing is, if you go out of your way to say, no, we're not going to give the same service to cops that other firearm stores do, they're just going to go there. And then you lose out, and then you lose out as a business. And something we had this conversation with a mod from Lead and Steel at SHOT Show, because he's in a similar spot right now as a blossoming optic company. Lead and Steel is trying to get military and police contracts because they want to stake their claim. And
exactly.
Yeah. Would you believe it? You know, you need money to operate as a business.
Yeah. And, you know,
shocker, right?
We always say that we want businesses with good morals to succeed. So I don't think that it makes sense to, I think in a perfect world, you would be self-sufficient without catering to police, the military, or whatever, you know. I mean, military is a bit of a different thing for me personally, because I feel like it's almost like extracurricular to, you know, you can be a driver in the military, you can be a cook in the military, you know. But I think that if in a perfect world, you know, we'll get to this place where the gun community grows enough to where a left-leaning or centric or far left gun company, gun manufacturer, gun store can exist by not giving discounts to police, not compromising on their values, because they are able to be self-sufficient without it. And I don't think we're at that point yet, but you know, it's a tough spot to be in, because we want you to succeed, but you can't succeed by shooting yourself in both feet this early in the game.
Yeah.
Right. And I will say, we have put our foot down on occasions. One of the things we do is, because we're so close to the border with New York and New Jersey, we get a lot of people from New York and New Jersey in to buy ammunition, especially because it's kind of a process in New York. Now you have to do a background check for ammunition. And I guess in New Jersey, there's something with the FOID card where you can only buy ammunition for guns that you have, like, that you actively own. Now, I could be wrong on the New Jersey one. It was explained to me by someone, but, you know, they might not be the most reliable narrator. The point is, we service, you know, a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, Maryland, you know, not so gun-friendly states. But then we'll have, you know, police officers from those states, like, hey, I want to buy this, it'll be through my department. And since we first opened, besides being, you know, very inclusive, one of the things I always said is, if I can't sell it to Joe Sixpack, I'm not going to sell it to Johnny Law.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're a cop in New York, I'm not selling you this simply because you're a cop. If I can't sell it to just an average everyday citizen from your state, I'm not going to make an exception for you. And I've definitely lost business because of that, but, you know, I don't want to, you know, compromise my beliefs and say, oh yeah, you know, it's a, you know, $2,000 Daniel defense. Yeah, let's do it. No, I don't care how much money you have to spend. If I can't sell it to anybody off the street that walks in from your state, I'm not going to make an exception for you.
But, you know, on top of that being like a morally upright kind of policy, it's also a bit prudent, given that we know, at least in California, there's been this documented, like, you know, cop run, like, you know, gun running cartel, basically, where they would use their cop privileges to buy off roster handguns and then sell them privately to citizens. Some of them not, you know, were what do you call it? Prohibited persons.
Prohibited persons.
Yeah. And so, it's almost like something, and this is the fucking cop hater in me coming out, but it's almost like you can't like trust a cop when they
Yeah.
When they come and they're like, yeah, I'm buying this for me with my cop privileges. And you're like, are you? You sure?
See, but being in this industry, you kind of have to, once the gun leaves your store, once it's no longer in your possession, you have no idea what that gun's going to be used for.
Yeah.
You hope it's not going to be used maliciously. You hope it's not going to turn up at a crime scene or a mass shooting or an officer-involved shooting.
Yeah.
But that's part of the risk you take in that industry is, somebody could buy that gun, take it out, and kill somebody the very next day. And they passed their background check. There was no indication that they were going to use it for a crime.
Yeah.
And that's just the... kind of the sad reality of being in the industry that I'm in is you have no control of that gun once it leaves your possession.
Yeah.
And it could end up anywhere.
Speaking of goofy performative actions rooted in pseudoscience and bullshit, Connecticut it passed the House, I think. There's a bill in process right now that would allow people to sue gun stores and manufacturers in the state if they knowingly sold the gun to someone who was going to harm others with it. And when I heard this explained, I thought, okay, as somebody with even a superficial level of understanding of the gun industry, specifically in Connecticut, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't fucking happen. If you get somebody in your gun store, it literally doesn't happen. If you get somebody in your gun store that says, oh man, the wife, that not anymore after this, now that I have this, wife problems, no perfect wife, they're not going to sell them a fucking gun.
Yeah.
Especially I've heard, I don't know, countless examples of people turning people away who were going to buy a gun before they even got to the background check because they didn't sound right. You have the right to do that as a business owner.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fucking happen. Gun owners and gun store owners are not selling guns knowingly to malicious people. Like, that's law-abiding gun owners and law-abiding gun
At least,
gun
I was about to
stores.
say, at least in theory, there's undoubtedly some unscrupulous business owners out there that, you're going to kill your wife with this? Well, it's a $2,500 LWRC, not my problem.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'd like to think that any,
Hey,
gun store
can you kill
owner
my
with
wife
their
next?
soul- Yeah, exactly.
Hey! Oh,
But
yeah, get it?
I'd like to think any
We're joking,
law-abiding
right?
gun store
yes.
owner wouldn't, in Minecraft, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would knowingly sell a gun to somebody who's going to commit a malicious act with it because that puts your license in jeopardy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people will do
absolutely.
things for money that they wouldn't normally otherwise do. So I'm not going to say
Yeah.
it doesn't happen. It's never happened, but I've never experienced it in my
Yeah.
time in the industry. We've turned people away before because they, outright said, oh yeah, I'm buying this because my neighbor's dog is, fucking barking. It's like, hey, bud, congratulations. You can't buy a gun here.
Yeah. Like, what? Shooting my neighbor's dog is a crime? I thought this was America.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought this was a free country.
Yeah.
We used to be a country. It just blows my mind, and especially this with Adam Schiff now saying, with everything going on, with just, look outside. With that, the Democrats' priority is to have another assault weapons ban.
There will never be a better time to ban assault weapons.
This is
Like you said, it's all performative.
Yeah.
Well, this is my tinfoil hat time, okay? I don't think it's possible for them to be so fucking stupid and out of touch with current events that they're doing it accidentally. Part of me believes that it is complicit and that it is all part of a greater plan to disarm people and make them more reliant on the government
Yeah.
for protection.
I mean, that's the old conservative conspiracy theory for sure.
I know, but also like,
But
think
now the
about it.
conservatives
if
are like-
if it's two heads on the same
yeah,
body,
government.
then
Yeah.
they both
Exactly.
fucking benefit from it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is. I know it. Well, if they make everybody poor, then everyone's going to be on the dole. How does that benefit the fucking government? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm so, like physically sick at seeing that man's face now.
Yeah.
Like
It's wild,
It's like
Yeah.
if it were my job to introduce that bill to the public, my face would be like, "Sorry, guys, they made me come say this. I'm sorry."
It's my
But
job.
but you see him on camera, and he's just like serene. like almost no affect.
He's a fucking lizard.
Yeah, and it's like do you
He's
like
a lizard person.
do you
just
know
like
what's
Hillary Clinton.
happening? Like, do you like?
Yeah, are you here?
Like, presumably he remembers January 6th. You know, I mean,
he literally said Trump is the single greatest threat to our democracy that we've ever had.
Yeah,
and now he's like, give them the guns.
Yeah, let's disarm the populace while we're at it. Right.
I love it. I fucking, like, you know what it is? It's like when everything in your day has gone wrong, and then you step outside into, like, wet paint, or you shit your pants or something. You just have to laugh at that point. Yeah. It's like, that's what I feel like. That's why I'm like, I fucking love it. I love it. Like, these people want to lose an election so fucking bad after arguably, you know, yeah, I don't know. I digress.
On this podcast?
Yeah, never. Dustin, where do you, so you obviously said you're thinking about looking into doing a range. What's your recommendation to people now if they were to come to your store, buy a gun, but they don't have a place to shoot? Is there a place that you recommend for one way or another, either because of politics or just having the, probably not politics, right? But having the facilities
does play a big role in it, unfortunately. So the thing is, in this area, you have one of two choices. The place I used to work at, which again is very, very police oriented. You know, if you're not a cop or a veteran, you get treated differently.
Yeah.
Or the public range, which has its own set of problems. You know, the game commission up there are absolute fucking knobheads. Pardon my French, but they're insufferable bastards. So there's really no good place to get like practical trigger time.
Yeah.
If you're a person, if you're somebody who's
if you're
LGBT,
a person,
if you're a person,
if you are unfortunately a human being,
yes.
Right. Like the store I used to work at, is very non-inclusive, very cop-oriented, and you're going to get treated differently. Like, just as an example, a lot of our customers come in and bitch about my former place of employment, and they're like, oh, they wouldn't let me shoot my AK up there. They said it's damaging to the backstop, what have you. It's an indoor range. It's about 25 to 50 yards at points. And a lot of these customers happen to be African-American or Hispanic or Asian or, queer. And, you're not allowed to shoot your AK here. Meanwhile, when I worked there, every morning before I came in, I was there just fucking mag dumping there. They never said anything to me because I'm a straight passing white male, also an employee. And it's stuff like that, the double standards, the rules for thee, not for me. So that's not a great place to shoot if you're a like-minded individual, and the state game ranges just absolutely suck. Really, your best bet is to become friends with somebody that has land. Like, where I shoot now is private land that I've so been graciously allowed to shoot on. That's really the best place. A lot of those clubs that have their own ranges are your typical old boys clubs. You, me, or Andrew are not getting in there. Tom, Dick, and Harry are not getting in there. There's really just not a lot of good places to shoot right now, and that's why we want to build a range so bad. Not just because it'll take business away from my former place of employment, that's a tertiary objective, but also because there's no good place for somebody to shoot, really. I mean, the state ranges suck, and the one indoor range in the area that operates is, very non-friendly.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is everyone listening to this should be friends with you so that they can use the land that you're...
Well, it's not my land, so I can't guarantee it.
Yeah, so they can use the land of the person who you're friends with.
No. Everybody listening to this should help should help him crowdfund a community range.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, I mean, that's the idea, is we want to have a very inclusive range, just like we have a very inclusive store. But unfortunately, fighting with zoning commissions and just trying to find a spot of land that is very close to the store without, still being, driving distance.
Okay.
Because it's a very suburban area. There's not a lot of places you could realistically build a gun range
Dustin,
at.
hear me out.
Yeah.
Put it underground.
So the building that we currently sit on has no basement. It's basically just a concrete pad with a fucking... it's basically a giant pole barn on a concrete pad.
So start digging.
Me, if we had a basement, I would have made it a range already.
Yeah, just get out your...
And we are looking...
Get out your shovel and your pick.
Just start now, dude.
Yeah,
easy.
I'd have to, demolish the whole store and dig it up,
which
part of me thinks about from time to time. But
I've thought about that with my house, for sure. Jesus fucking Christ.
Same. Who amongst us, right?
Yeah. your best option at this point is, make friends with somebody that has land that let you shoot on. And it's shitty that that's the best option for a lot of people, but that really is the most practical option if you want to get, practical trigger time.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's always been, I mean, kind of regardless of where you go, unless you live out by BLM land,
right?
You're kind of stuck with whatever is near you, and I'd say as a rule of thumb, unless you go into these massive ranges, like the range 702 in Las Vegas, Nevada, that allow you to shoot, pretty much whatever there. You're going to have a wildly different experience than you would if you were just shooting on somebody's land.
Right. Even the public land around here, like the BLM land that you could go and shoot on. The problem with that is then you deal with, chowderheads with guns that are unsafe and, you don't want to be anywhere around, stay fucking 50 feet away.
Unsafe by whose standards?
Well, I saw one guy nearly castrate himself with a washing machine full of tannerite. So that's an
wow. Yeah, okay, fair.
When I was an EMT, we had one guy who was shooting a washing machine full of tannerite way too close, and he had some severe lacerations. He was lucky he didn't hit his femoral artery, but that's a pretty indicative of what you're going to find on public land around here.
Yeah.
I never understood how people could get hurt with tannerite because there's literally a formula to determine how far you should be away from it. It tells you.
Well, that's math. That's outside the wheelhouse of a lot of people.
There's a wide gulf between knowing and doing, my friend.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I know.
You're like,
I know that I should put my clothes in my drawer, but I don't.
Here's how it goes. I know that I should be 200 yards away from this when it explodes. However, I can't shoot at 200 yards, so I'm going to do it at 50.
However, it's not going to look as cool.
For the best.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, goofy. Dude, I've seen way too many people on Instagram get blown up by tannerite or fireworks at this point. I don't know how my account is restricted, but I can see that shit.
Exactly. Oh, we had that with Facebook, where our page got taken down because we sold firearms. And we emailed Facebook constantly, hey, here's a copy of our FFL or SOT. Yeah. We're a licensed business. And there are other businesses in the area that do the same thing and aren't restricted, but we are. But that's, that's for Mark Zuckerberg to figure out. I don't, okay, I'm sure if he bans us, he has a reason.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm super sure. Man, I have high hopes for the gun industry in the future, but it's going to be a long process to get there.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You kind of have to wait for the old guard to die out before you could start making any real changes.
Dude, but here's the thing. Like, I'm so torn all the time with what I see in real life off the internet with the shit that I'm constantly bombarded with on the internet, because I've talked to so many people in person. And granted, like, take this for what it's worth. I live in Connecticut in the Northeast in a blue state. Our right-wing conservatives are, on average, closer to the center, probably, than right-wing conservatives, like, down south or wherever.
Exactly.
But I have conversations like this pretty regularly because of where I work and the diversity of belief there. But I've had conversations with people who I would think that I would never want to get a beer with because of their shit that they say. Where once I've spent time talking to them for a period of time about whatever it is that we're talking about, one of the guys that I talk to frequently about abortion is a very Christian conservative, and we've made a ton of progress on this. I think, on this conversation, and not so much towards he's going to be pro-choice because he doesn't care about babies anymore, but because he may see, or the door has been opened for him to walk through and see, hey, not everybody who gets an abortion is a piece of shit like my church tells me.
Yeah.
Or, is going to, like, he's actually said, we've had this conversation about me being an atheist. He said, you're going to hell, but, you're a good person. I have no reason not to like you.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is coming from a guy who's done mission trips, like, he's like, 10 years ago probably would have spent effort trying to change my mind, but now it's like, I have no reason to not like you. I didn't do that for him. That was a conclusion he came to on his own from other people. But that's a thing that can happen with conversations with people, but the internet makes it so fucking hard to have these conversations because of the people who who make it really fucking hard. Sometimes I just want to punch my fist through my computer screen or like yeet my phone into the yard. Yeah, and I realize I'm the one who has to pay for it.
And you bring up an interesting point where it's not impossible to change somebody's mind. For a long time, I'm a Catholic. I would consider myself not a good Catholic, but a practicing Catholic. And for a long time, I was one of those people we don't like. I was very... And the thing is, in my heart of hearts, I didn't truly believe it, but because of the environment I was around, I was homophobic, I was racist, I was, pro-life. And it wasn't until I really got out of that area and started to think for myself and talk to people that, hey, maybe we shouldn't stone women just for having an abortion. Hey, maybe we shouldn't, treat people differently. Because if you're a real Catholic, not somebody that is doing it performatively, a real Christian, not somebody doing it performatively, you are supposed to love your neighbor above all else. Jesus taught forgiveness. Jesus taught love. And it pisses me off when you see people using their religion to spread hate, because that's antithetical to the point of the Bible. That's antithetical to the point of your religion. I have no problem sitting here and saying I'm a Catholic, but I think women should be able to get abortions. I am a Catholic, but I think, people that are LGBTQ plus should be treated the same as anybody else. If being gay is a sin, quote unquote, big fucking if there, why is it automatically a mortal sin? Why is it not a venial sin? Why does being gay automatically condemn you to hell? Where
because the dude who wrote that part of the Bible had some feelings he couldn't come to terms with.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm not trying to sacrilege anybody, but
that's fine. We sacrilege. The thing is that's the other thing. The whole holier than thou attitude that some religious people have. It's like we're human. We make mistakes. We make jokes. We say things that we don't necessarily mean. I have definitely said some less than great things about the Bible or the current state of the church. And if that condemns me to hell, then the system's broken.
It's really hard to square the idea of, like, in text, you're taught about a loving God who wants everyone to be saved, with the practice of, if you don't behave the way my sect of Christianity behaves, then you will go to hell. And that's where you'll stay forever.
Exactly.
And so I just don't even believe in eternal damnation anymore, which is like, that's like heretical in and of itself.
Yeah, but that's a cool word.
What, heretical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very Warhammer.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things. Yeah. I just, it's just like you kind of, I just don't think that we would be created or molded in a creator's image just to like, just do a specific set of things over and over again, just the same way forever. I don't know. That seems weird.
That comes down to the whole free will thing.
Yeah.
If we are in fact made in God's image, and He, blessed us with free will, why does using that free will now condemn me to, eternal damnation? I don't think it does.
They'll explain it to you like, well, the free will is a test, right? So he gives you the requirements, then he gives you the free will to either meet the requirements or not, and that's the test, right?
Right.
But I don't think, it doesn't,
sounds like a sadistic test.
Right. From reading the Bible, it seems like free will is a gift, not a fucking curse,
Right.
Well, that's what I would think. I wouldn't give somebody, like
you love your son and you want him to be successful and happy, so you just hand him a gun and you're like, whatever you do with it. I'm not,
yeah. Or you hand him a heroin needle and
you're like, whatever.
You could do it.
Don't use it.
Don't use it. But you could, but
you have free will.
Yeah.
But don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. My example was going to be much less like violent and horrible. But
what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, like, my wife eats much healthier than I do. Like she's very, very adamant about like what goes. My body is a burning temple. It's not good.
The walls are coming down.
The walls are coming down. There's the car is on fire and there's nobody at the wheel. Yeah. The trumpet has blown. The 4 horsemen are on their way. But anyway, like I know that would be like me putting cake in front of her, me putting baked goods in front of her and being like, I know you're on a diet, but you just can choose not to have this.
Yeah, it's on you, babe.
It's goofy. I don't know.
Wouldn't it be funny if we all got to judgment and it was like, No, you had to eat barbecue. That's the only way to get into heaven. How did you not get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we said that.
Yeah,
so
we
many
said that
times.
like a bunch of times. Did you not write that
Yeah.
down in your fucking
written
book?
very clearly right here.
Yeah.
We gave you
didn't-
instructions. How
What,
did you
didn't
fuck
kill
that up?
anybody?
Yeah.
You wiped your ass on Saturdays?
Oh,
Holy shit.
bud.
No,
That was
I
like
get
the
it.
one thing.
Bro, that was the one thing. You're not supposed to wipe your ass on Saturdays.
Yeah.
You had one fucking rule.
Yeah.
God's got a sense of humor. That was his joke. You're an idiot. I think if there's a God, he would have a sense of humor. Because how could you not have a sense of humor when you've got like you know what it is? Like I think of things like
the
this,
platypus.
or like gerbils. Gerbils will pop out a bunch of babies and then fucking eat them. That's objectively made by made by somebody who has a sense of humor.
Yeah,
Hamsters or gerbils are one
absolutely.
of them. Listen, God made you in your image. Then why
Yeah.
does that guy want to put a hamster up his butt?
Well, so here's the other thing too, is, and this is another spot where I kind of get I kind of get into heretical territory. It's like I don't think that necessarily humans or any other like living creature were specifically made. You know, I think I think that like natural systems were built and things were set in motion, but I don't think that I don't think God was up here with like a fucking like sketch pad, just trying to get the fucking human penis perfect. It's like I think
the dodo.
yeah,
Who's
yeah.
who amongst us?
I don't know. It's just like I think it's just kind of vain to be like, well, God looks like me and he made me to look like him. Like, I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that happened before apes came down from the trees. So I think that maybe God's creation is a little bit bigger than that.
No. Whoa, you fucking it's a bumblebee. Jesus Christ.
I was like, did I just blow your mind, bro?
No, dude. I don't have my glasses on. Oh, buddy, I gotta get you out of here. I don't have my glasses on. I just saw this fucking blob crawling across my.
Is it a bumblebee?
I mean, he's fuzzy. I think he's a bumblebee.
Oh, I didn't notice the appenflage blouse behind you. That's fucking sick.
Yeah.
That's what I wear when I. This dude. You almost saw me lose my shit. That's what happened because I didn't know. Here, buddy, come on, don't fly into the light
repeat
bulb.
of the Spricket episode.
Yeah. Whoa, hey, buddy, that's hot. Don't fly up there. Don't fly up there.
Oh no.
I gotta open the door.
He's gonna cook himself.
Oh no. Go pollinate, little bee. There's no flowers in here.
Fucking, we're losing enough bees as it is, and the ones that we do have.
There's a
some
massive
nice
fucking
stuff.
spider on the door.
What is going on in this basement?
You know what? You know what's going on? Because I just had my fucking my whole skin is tingling now. I don't know what's going on, brother. You gotta get out of here. There's so much shit going on right now. You gotta leave.
Just calmly take a step back and burn the house down.
The thing is, everything's freakier without my glasses on, dude. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't judge like the size of things. Is that a spricket? You know what happened?
He's very
the
close
pest
to
control
losing his
people.
shit, Dustin.
No. The pest control people came. They sprayed the border of the foundation, so now they all come inside temporarily. Sorry, this podcast has been derailed. I just want
Buddy,
you to
just
leave.
get a big thing and kill it.
I don't have a big thing. What thing do you want me to get?
I don't know,
a
like
gun?
a book.
I have a thing.
Like
a
you
got a
book.
shoe-
What do you think?
shoes
We already
and
know I don't read.
Do you have shoes on your feet? Look
Dude,
down.
at the risk of sounding,
Look at your feet.
At the risk of sounding like a.
Why are you dodging
a
this
person
question?
Stop! I'm just. Stop, dude.
Dude, the world wants to know, are you wearing shoes?
I'm wearing shoes. I don't want to use them because then I'm gonna feel the crunch.
No, you take the shoe in your hand.
It's a sensory thing, isn't
You
it?
take the shoe in your hand and you get like force behind it and you just.
Brother, I know how to kill.
No, you know what you need is one of these bitches. Bug assault.
Yeah, I need a bug assault. All right, I'm gonna kill this
Blast
spider
it with a little bit of salt.
Murder the spider.
I'm gonna kill the spider on the door. I'm gonna kill the spider on the door because that's what's freaking me out.
Just make sure you get it with a good, don't just scare it off. I did that with a wasp.
Dude,
I knocked
dude.
hold
on. I can't concentrate.
Dustin, I tried to knock a wasp nest down with a wasp on it, and I tried to kill the wasp, but I kept like only half getting it with my little rock, and it was like trying to get out of the little box it was in. I was like, no, you can't go free, because I wasn't gonna be able to like stop it if it got out in the open air.
You know what my favorite tool for disposing of wasp nests is the Keltec KSG.
Yeah, there you go.
That thing that obliterates a wasp nest.
I believe it. You all right, bud?
All right.
Sorry for stressing you out, bud.
No. It's not you, dude. It's all me. This is a me problem, not a you problem. It's not you. How I react to the stimuli around me is on me, not you.
Here's a man who would like go to war to defend his family, as long as it's got less than 8 legs.
Oh, you fucker! Oh God, that's the B again, dude. I can't. I'm all fucked up. It just dropped next to me. It's just,
dude. Do we need to wrap this up, bud? Are you losing your shit?
No,
Are you okay,
on,
Jordan?
Sorry, buddy. All right, he's gonna sit. We're good.
Just put
He's
a
gonna
cup
sit
on
in the
him?
mug. He's gonna sit under the cup until we're done.
Okay.
I'm tense.
Yeah,
I'm tense
yeah,
now.
dude. I can see that.
This episode brought to you by Bug Assault.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bug assault and I'm keeping it on my desk. I don't want to kill the bee though. That's the thing. I want to let the bee outside.
Right.
But the spider ruined my plan. Well, Dustin, I don't know what I was talking about.
We were talking about God's creation, but we're gonna move on from that, I think.
Yeah. Fair. Speaking of God's creation, I'm surrounded by them.
Yeah.
And they fucking suck. No, I like bees, dude. I'm planting wildflowers in my backyard because I want more bees, but
Yeah.
I want more bumblebees and honeybees. Well, those kind, the good kind.
More bees, less spiders.
More bees, less spiders. Exactly. That's the thing, though. What bug eats spiders? Not many. Not the bugs I want in my house.
Birds.
Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Not bugs. That's
okay.
not a bug. Bird's not a bug. Sorry, you asked what bugs eat spiders.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Other
how do we
spiders.
get
Other
birds?
spiders eat spiders. Bigger spiders eat.
Yeah, I
smaller
don't
spiders.
want those. That's what I'm
Sometimes
saying.
of the
I don't
same
want those spiders in my
species,
house.
a female spider will eat the male spiders. They have to wait and hide at the edge of the web and like real sneakily and quickly go up and like impregnate her, because if she catches them in the web, she eats them.
Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I love being a human.
Yep.
I would hate to be a spider.
Yeah.
Me
What
too.
a miserable life.
Yeah, dude. All right, that's a pretty good natural end, I guess. Unless you've got more questions, Andrew. I'm just so thrown off right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hear a noise and I'm twitching.
Yeah. Let's not drag it out, but I think you're cooked.
No, Dustin, oh man, that's a shame. This is good. This is good though. It's a good length. It's a good girth.
Absolutely.
And I think this is good. It's nice and chunky for the people who want sustenance in their soup. Dude, if you had one piece of advice to give people, what would it be?
The nugget of wisdom.
One piece of advice. Don't listen to the echo chamber. When you're online and, it is very easy to get depressed scrolling through your Instagram feed, looking at all the, we don't hear enough about the good. We only hear about the bad. And, it's very easy to get sidetracked and, lose the plot, so to speak. Don't let the state of the world as it is now get you down, because we need people to make change. It's a lot easier said than done, but looking at the country from 30,000 feet, it seems like it's more divided than ever, but I think it's a lot more blown out of proportion than it really is. There are good people on both sides of the fence, and don't let, your preconceived notions about people affect how you treat them. Treat everybody with respect and dignity, regardless of whether you agree with them personally or not.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. I agree. Sounds like it would be something that I would say also.
Well, you're very profound, Jordan.
Oh, am I? Profound until spider cricket comes near, and then I turn into
profoundly scared of spiders.
Profoundly scared. Yeah, exactly. Well,
dude,
dude, this was fun.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. I've been wanting to get you on the show forever. I wish you so much success. If I'm ever in the old
I appreciate
Scranton, I'll come visit you.
Absolutely. Stop by. You guys are welcome anytime.
Oh, yeah.
It's been such an absolute fucking honor and a pleasure to be on the
Ah,
podcast.
jeez. Come on. Fuck.
No, like I told Jordan, I got somebody else asked me to be on a podcast, and I said, said, "Oh, holy fuck! I told Jordan I would be on the podcast like almost a year ago. I've just been so busy with work and everything. Like, I'm not going to go on somebody else's before I fulfill my promise to Jordan." And like I said, just as a fan of the show and what you guys do, you know, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure to be on. If there's ever anything I could do for you guys, you know, resource-wise, if you have questions, comments, concerns, don't ever hesitate to reach out. You know, that's what mutual aid, building a community is about, is anything I could do for you guys, let me know. You need somebody to sponsor your next giveaway, I'm your man.
Hell yeah. I appreciate you, man.
Fuck yeah.
Hey, appreciate
even if we
you
just
guys.
buy a gun from you for a giveaway, I would love to support each other.
Hey, absolutely. And you know, you guys don't pay full price around my store.
Jeez.
Hey, my guy. Hey, I got a guy.
Browsing your inventory right now.
Sick. All right, dude. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Don't go home too late. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. I got nothing.
Well, hey, like I said, it's been a pleasure, you guys. I can't wait to hear this. Can't wait to show all my friends and family. Like I said, it's been amazing.
That makes me so happy, dude. Like, seriously, I imagine you showing this, like, getting your mom or your friends to listen to this. And Andrew's mom donates to our Patreon, which, if you're listening to this and you like the show, go check out our Patreon, where you can support us directly and get a bunch of exclusive content. And a bunch of super neat merch exclusive to our Patreon people. Also, our Discord.
Yeah, and new for this year, every dollar you spend on the Patreon adds an entry to a sweepstakes that is randomly drawn, where Jordan and I will call you on your personal phone in the middle of the night and just breathe into the phone.
Yes, I agree. That's something that we both planned for and agree to.
And that's a real thing that is actually going to happen.
It's a real thing that will happen. I don't know what would be worse, us calling somebody in the middle of the night or when they pick up, us just breathing. Well, what kind of breathing? Because that changes it.
Like you just...
It has to be heavy.
Yeah, like you just did a moderate to heavy run.
Okay. So not like... Yeah, okay, I'm not going to do it. That's not a moderate... Dude, I don't like that. See, that's what I mean. I don't want that. That's not how I
don't
sound
think anybody
after
wants
one.
that.
No, maybe your wife. But
No. That's why I got to call patrons and do it, because she won't let me do it to her.
that's why I'm on a podcast. My wife wants me to get away from her.
She can't fucking stand me. You won't let me out of my office, actually. All right. Leave. Get off my computer.
All right, Dustin.
All right, guys.